Hey guys, sorry I'm not there today. I'm sitting at home having fun in the study here. So today we'll be looking at 8G, which kind of where this topic gets particularly tricky. It's essentially where we've got our financial problems, but the exercise, excuse me, is literally called harder financial problems. It's where it steps up a little bit, where we get changing conditions. In reality, the majority of the times with loans and investments is that they do have changing conditions, whether that be the rate will change partway through, or payment values will have to change, or it'll be where there's some element of question is changing, and therefore we need to accommodate that in the finance solver. So often with these ones, you'll be doing probably two finance solver calculations. The first one being the starting conditions, and then the second being however the conditions have changed. So it might be adjusting the rate or something like that. So have a look at this first one, finding the value of an investment when the regular payment changes. All right, so in this one we got Derek. He's invested $50,000 into a compound interest investment, paying 6.1% per annum, compounding annually. Derek invests an additional $8,000 per year immediately after interest is calculated. After 5 years, Derek increases his additional investment to $10,000 per year. Calculate the value of Derek's investment after 12 years in total. So here we've got a 12-year investment, and then after 5 years, something changes. In this case, it's the additional investment. So the amount of the PMT will be changing partway through. Sometimes with this one, I like to draw a bit of a timeline, or we can just write it out for the finance solver. So we'll do both for this one just to show you what each one will look like. So the beginning conditions for this one is we'll set up our variables. All right, so it's a $50,000 investment. Because it's an investment, that means we're putting in it as a negative value. Interest rate is 6.1% per annum. The initial payment is $8,000 per year. And again, that is a negative because Derek is putting that money into the account. This one is PPY and CPI is just one because, excuse me, it's annual compounding and annual payments. And N for this part will be 5. The reason that it'll be 5 is because we're looking up here. After 5 years is where the change occurs. So we want to see it before that change happens. All right, so we'll jump over to our finance solver. I'm just going to start with a fresh one. All right, so put those in. And we got 112,414.36419679. Now, with these questions, it's important not to round these figures. The reason for that is we don't want to round until we get to the very, very end. We haven't finished this question yet. So this 112,414, we're going to need to keep those decimals because if we round it and then round it again at the end, we'll likely get an answer that's probably a few cents off what it should be. So 112,414.361. 36419, sorry. Okay, so this is where the change occurs. So now the payment is changing. We need to know what to put where. We need to make sure that our variables are going in the right spot. So I'm going to first set up the next one. We'll be changing. Oops. a few things here. All right, so firstly, the rate doesn't change, so that can just remain as 6.1. Same with PPY and CPY, they are the same. So the payment is changing, so we'll put that in here, the negative 10,000. Now, the PV is where people often will make their mistakes. Often our students will put negative 50,000 in there. But remember that this is after that 5 years that have already passed. So essentially, the FV in the previous response now becomes our new PV. All right, so this happens with most of these style of questions where we've calculated something part way through. If we calculated a future value, it now becomes our present value because we are now calculating the remaining, to be 7 years because it's 12 years in total. So we'll put that FV in where our PV was. And again, we'll put it in as a negative. We always put them in as negatives. Whoops, with loans. I've forgotten how to delete them, so that's not a decimal. Three, 6, 4, 1, 9, 6, 7, 9. And as I mentioned, this N will be 7 because it's 12 years in total, 5 and 7. Right, if we head back over to here, 1, 2, 414.364, 9679. A couple of you have mentioned this before. Because of my CAD settings, when I click out of it, it appears to round to the nearest whole number, but as it's calculating, it's still counting all those decimals. I mean, it's changed to $10,000. And the future value, 254.343.7977. So because that's my final answer, that's where I can now round it. Excuse me. And that's my answer. So that's an example of the payment being the changing conditions. Usually it's either the rate or the payment. They're the most common things that could change. Technically, it could be the frequency of the payments or the compounding periods, but most questions will be around payments and rate. I mentioned before about like a bit of a timeline. This is just sort of an optional thing, but sometimes with these questions, it can help you visualize if you draw out a bit of a timeline of what's occurring. So pretend that this is Derek's investment. That's the 5-year period where the change occurs. That's the 12-year period where the investment finishes. So for that first part, it was $8,000 for the payments. At the 5-year mark, it was worth $112,414.36. So I forgot to mention it started at $50,000. And then the payments changed to $10,000, which meant it finished on $254,343.80. I've just had students in the past that like to draw up those timelines as they're completing the question, help visualize what's occurring, and just see that here at the 5-year mark, when we're trying to calculate that 12-year mark, that figure there, 112,000 becomes our new PV. Please pause this video at any time if you need to write any of this down, but I'm going to move on to the next question. All right, finding the final payment of a reducing balance loan where the interest rate changes. So a bit different, this one. It's not an investment, it's a loan, and we are going to be having a changing rate. All right, so Adrian borrows $150,000 for 25 years at a rate of 6.8% per annum, compounding monthly. For the first 3 years, Adrian repays $41.11 each month. After those first 3 years, the interest rate rises to 7.2% per annum. Adrian still wishes to pay off the loan in 25 years, so makes 260 monthly payments of $1,076.18, followed by a final payment. We're going to be calculating that final payment to ensure the loan is fully repaid at the end of 25 years. Round your answer to the nearest cent. All right, so this combines changing conditions with final payment. So it's a good question, this one. All right, so I'm going to first set up the initial information and figure out when that first change occurs. Okay, these are monthly payments and monthly compounding periods. I'll start with that. This is a $150,000 loan. And it's a positive value because this is a loan. The initial payments that Adrian makes are $1,041.11. The initial interest rate is 6.8. Now it says after 3 years the rate changes. So my changing conditions here is 3 years. The purpose of N will be 36. It's monthly for 3 years. And it's now FV that I need to calculate. So we'll jump over to the CAS. I'm just going to start a fresh document so I can get rid of all that. All right, so we had 36, 6.8, 150,000, 1,041 and 11 cents. And my PPY and CPY were 12. Right, so after 3 years, Adrian still owes $142,391. And again, like with the last question, we won't round these figures until the very, very end. So negative $142,391.83593707. There could be more digits here that we can't see, but this is enough decimal places that we'll get an accurate answer. And we'll write that in. And remember, future value on a loan is negative because that is money that is still owing. All right, so after those 3 years, the rate and payment changes. Now we're doing a final payment here. So I mentioned the other day that there are a couple of ways to do these questions. Collectively as a class, we preferred one of the methods, so we'll stick with that method in this question. But we'll set this up again, and we'll go from there. With this question, because the rate has increased, but the time hasn't changed, that will automatically push the value of the payments up. All right, we'll start with the easy ones. So we got PPY and CPY are 12. The payment has changed to $1,076.18. The rate changed to 7.2. So like with the last one, the FV will now become my PV. 3 years have passed, and so now this is my present value. Because it's a loan, the PV is positive. And I'll include all those lovely decimals. Now, 263 payments are being made, followed by that final payment. So we could put 263 in for N, look at the future value, and then add the interest on. But we preferred the other method where we'll put this in as 264. And then we'll just adjust that final payment based off what the future value is that we get. So in this context, if we get a positive future value, we'll have to take that off because this person will have essentially paid too much. So they'll need to be credited that. If we get a negative, we'll have to add that on to the payment. So it'll be a little bit more. But let's jump back to the finance solver and have a look. All right, so we put N as 264. My interest rate is 7.2. The PV is 142,391. Was it 8359? Oops, 3707. Payment has increased to $1,076.18. And we now want to calculate this future value. And there it is. So we got 1.11735068. Because we are finishing the question after this, we can round that. So that'll be rounded to 12 cents. So when I write my answer here, I'll write that as 12 cents. So what that means is Adrian has overpaid by 12 cents. So we can subtract that from the bank, excuse me, and that will be the final payment. So the payment is equal to $1,076.18 minus 0.12. And there's our answer. So as I mentioned, these are the trickiest style of questions where we have changing conditions, but as long as you follow the process, set up your initial information, usually it's the FV that you have to work out, that becomes your new PV, put in the changes that have occurred, and then answer the question in the context. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. You are now able to have a go at the 8G questions. Thanks, guys.